How's everyone doing? Welcome back to another episode of The Banker Next Door. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Berquist. Hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. I hope everyone had a chance to check out the BND Strategy Room live stream it was on Friday night this last weekend. But if you hadn't checked that out, I hope everyone will go check that out when you have a minute. I go over all kind of the weekly banking news, if you will, everything that's kind of going on in the world of finance. So like I said, if you have a minute, go check that out. Today we're going to be I have covered the ICBA, kind of their blueprint for 2025 and what they want to do. Today I'm going to bring everybody ABA, the American Bankers Association. I'm going to bring you their blueprint for 2025 to see what do they have planned. So let's bring this in here real quick. So this is their little document here. It's about a 5-page document that they put out, the ABA blueprint for Blueprint for Growth in 2025 and beyond. And basically this reads, the American Bankers Association is the only trade association to represent banks of all sizes and their 2.1 million dedicated employees. We help America's banks serve their customers and strengthen their communities by advocating for policies in Washington that drive a healthy economy for all, pursue a rational regulation to preserve Main Street access to credit and capital, and foster a competitive financial services market. ABA is the only trade association with a formal alliance of 52 state bankers associations that work tirelessly to ensure banks can continue to meet the needs of their customers in their home states. ABA and its state association partners believe a strong banking industry is foundational to a strong economy. We look forward to partnering with members of Congress and regulators to ensure we are delivering on both. Now, I want to zoom in here so everybody can get a better look at this as we kind of scroll down here. So incredibly enough, I really haven't talked that much about the ABA in my, about a year and a half that I've been doing the podcast so far. So you can see here, the ABA was basically celebrating 150 years. They were started in 1875. And I will have to do an episode kind of going over the history and looking at the background of the ABA as they're celebrating 150 years this year. ABA is the largest and is the, I guess you could call it the premier banking trade association in the banking industry. They are the kind of the big kid on the block, if you will. There are a number of, there are a number of different, you got state banking associations. Then you've got, the Independent Community Bankers Association, American Bankers Association. So there's a number of different banking trade associations. There's the, I think, what is it? The Bank Policy Institute, whatever. So there's a number of different ones out there, but like I said, let's continue in depth here on what the ABA is planning for 2025. So, America's banks drive the economy. And then they've kind of got like an infographic here. And what is it? Some of the key things on here. So America's 24.2 trillion banking industry employs over 2 million people, safeguards 19.1 trillion in deposits, and extends 12.6 trillion in loans. Banks of all sizes invested more than 606 billion in low and moderate income communities from 2021 to 2023. More than 4,500 banks serve customers nationwide through more than 76,000 branches and universal mobile platforms. America's banks originate 2.6 trillion in mortgage loans in 2023 and hold approximately 27.3 million small farm and small business loans. Our priorities. So drive a healthy economy for all. So banks of all sizes and business models play important roles in driving healthy growth across all corners of the economy. Our diverse banking ecosystem is comprised of more than 2 million dedicated employees partnering with policymakers to grow our economy and inject needed capital into rural and underserved communities so everyone can succeed. We call on Congress to take the following steps. Tax policy, ACRE, mission-driven banks, housing, and fraud. And let's take a look at each one of these here. So tax policy, pursue pro-growth tax policy that encourages investment and expands opportunities for all Americans by ensuring a competitive corporate tax rate and continuing the Section 199A pass-through deduction, a provision that enables many community banks to play a vital role in local economic development. ACRE, enact the Access to Credit for Our Rural Economy Act, which will sustain and grow rural America by lowering the cost of credit for farmers and ranchers financing agricultural real estate, as well as the cost of homeownership in 17,000 rural communities. Mission-driven banks support the work of minority depository institutions, otherwise known as MDIs, and community development financial institutions, also known as CDFIs. Banks that are uniquely focused on serving communities of color and low to moderate income communities by creating a CDFI investment tax credit that would incentivize long-term capital investments in these vital institutions. Yeah, I think that's good. I think it's great. Housing. Approach housing policy holistically by supporting initiatives that create affordable and sustainable housing opportunities across all communities while ensuring liquidity to primary and secondary markets, including through government-sponsored enterprises, GSEs, and the Federal Home Loan Banks. Fraud. Pursue an all-of-government approach to combating financial fraud to protect consumers and reduce the number of Americans who fall victims to scams. All right, there, and I'm all right. I'm going to say there are a couple of things on this real quick. So I'm going to say the all of government approach. I'm not sure I'm all on board with all of government. I think part of the reason that we are where we are today is because we've had all of government too much in our lives. That is what has brought us to, beneficial ownership information and open banking. This idea of in pursuit of all fraud, by using all of government approach. Yes. I don't think I think I'm on board with that one. The housing thing, ensuring liquidity to primary and secondary markets, including through government sponsored enterprises and the Federal Home Loan Banks. But, what did they not say there? They didn't say that they were necessarily going to push for, bringing the GSEs, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, bringing them out of conservatorship, which is what we want. We want them to go back to being private enterprises and not being owned and operated by the government. So, okay, but I digress. Let's continue on here. So pursue rational regulation to preserve Main Street access to credit and capital. So bank regulations have significant real world consequences that stretch far beyond the regulated entities themselves, affecting the stability of the financial system, growth in underserved communities, and the cost and availability of financial products and services for consumers and businesses. Over the past several years, bank regulators have proposed and finalized regulations that will reduce access to affordable credit and undermine the dynamism and diversity of our banking system. We urge Congress and regulators to mitigate the effects of such proposals. Here we go. There's the meat of it. Let's get in here. So, small business lending data collection, Section 1071. Interchange Durbin Amendment, Community Reinvestment Act, or the CRA, bank capital, safer banking, passed the Safer Banking Act, and open banking, Section 1033, and credit card programs. So let's take a look at some of these for a second, shall we? So obviously, I think there's a real push at the moment to basically repeal this Section 1071 while calling on the CFPB to pause implementation and begin a process to formally withdraw the rule as we pursue ongoing litigation. I think just in the last couple of weeks, I think that there's probably a high probability of this happening now, but we'll see what happens. The Interchange Durbin Amendment obviously opposed government mandates on credit card routing and urged the Federal Reserve to put low and moderate income consumers before the needs of large retailers by withdrawing its proposal to impose misguided debit card price controls that will raise the cost of basic checking accounts. That's an interesting one. I'd have to get into that one in much more in depth because I think, there's a lot of, I've talked about that a little bit, but I probably need to cover that more because there's a lot more angles there. Community Reinvestment Act, they're still working on that. Obviously, bank capital, they tried to the N3, the Basel N3. It was the Basel III endgame. That didn't get put into place, and I'm sure that they will be talking about that. So the more conversation will come on that. Safer Banking passed the Safer Banking Act to get state-sanctioned cannabis cash off the streets and into regulated financial institutions, making our community safer and the cannabis industry more transparent to regulators, tax authorities, and law enforcement. Sounds good on the surface. I think that's a fight. I think that's a tough one to get through. Open banking. Yes, I've talked a lot about open banking. You guys can go check out my episode on open banking. Keep an eye out this week. I'm going to have an interview with Mickey Marshall from the ICBA where him and I are going to get real in depth on open banking. My personal stance on open banking is that I'm not for it. I don't want it. So I'm hoping that, I'm hoping that there's a lot of pushback on this year. And then finally, credit card programs. So delay implementation and withdraw the CFPB's rule on credit card late fees to preserve access for credit for low and moderate income borrowers as litigation remains active. Yeah, we'll see what happens with that one. And then I think this is the last page. Yes. So what does it say? So it just says foster a competitive financial services market. They want deposit insurance reform. Talk about what's going on with credit unions with their tax preferential tax treatment, if you will, digital asset regulation. In other words, let's finally get some regulation around stable coins and cryptocurrency and crypto exchanges. And then national bank preemption, defend the dual banking system, a pillar of economic strength that spurs innovation and empowers banks to serve every market in the United States, from states' efforts to assert authority over basic operations of national banks, including decisions about deposit taking, lending, and risk management. So there you have it. I think it's, again, sounds like overall sounds like a pretty decent plan for 2025. There's a couple of things, not totally liking, but I thought I like this infographic here at the beginning. Gives you a lot of basics on kind of like where the industry is, for a little over 4,500 banks, 67,000 branches, 24.2 trillion in banking size, employs 2 million people, has 19.1 trillion in deposits, extends 12.6 trillion in loans. So a lot of really good, a lot of, covers a lot of just kind of basics there or whatever. But there you have it. That is the ABA blueprint for growth in 2025 and beyond. So, but I will wrap up with this. Like I said, I will do another episode just going over the history of the ABA, because I think it is a good history. Them celebrating, congrats to them on celebrating 150 years, being our premier trade association in the banking industry. But with that, I will wrap up by saying, if you like this episode, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, we are on YouTube, Rumble, and all major podcast platforms. Please be sure to leave your comments down below, as I always love getting back to everybody. And as always, please check out some of the other content on the channel, and I will see everyone again real soon. Thanks a lot.